Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to take a look at the Fractal Terra ITX case. Now, it's not the cheapest ITX case in the world. The price I've been given by Fractal is $179. I haven't seen any conversions or seen any local prices in GBP yet, so we'll go with $179. It normally means it's going to be £179. So definitely not the cheapest ITX case out there, and it is quite small. But I have a selection of props here already to be able to show you when we have a walk around. And in reality, there are only two things that have annoyed me. One's very minor. One wound me up no end, but it wasn't a deal breaker, unlike some of the ones with the Corsair 2000D, which I just didn't like. So this one is smaller, more compact, and I think it's a lot more livable with in the long run. But really we should get cracking, because there is so many things inside that you can customize, move, add round. It's pretty user configurable depending on the hardware that you want to put inside. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's put a smile on my face. So we always start around the front and normally the top, but it's actually kind of minimal anyway. So we'll just start with the very front. You have a power switch, USB-A, USB-C, small little wooden panel at the bottom. That colour with the black is sublime. Now I will say from the get-go that one of the things that did annoy me is the fact you can mark the front. Now that is purely my nails, that is skin, but they do give you a little cloth in the package to be able to clean it with. But even when you clean it, if you catch your hand on it, you can mark it again. So this is going to be one of those cases that you end up cleaning a lot or never touching. You're going to see your mum coming near this with the furniture polish, and you're going to go, no! I think you're going to want to treat it like a satin wrapped or matte wrapped car in that. Keep off of it, don't put any waxy stuff on it, because I think the moment you get something with a wax or a polish on this, you're going to get shiny marks, because you can see how easy it is for me to mark it with my fingers, but you are going to be forever cleaning it. I think it's going to be like a bit like wallpaper, sorry, not wallpaper, like matte wall paint, that you're kind of trying to stop the kids from touching it so it doesn't get marked. Now, as you can see, I think the camera depends on the sort of angle and stuff that you're with. It's not too bad, but when I first did that, I was so glad to find the cloth in the package, because I thought it was going to be something I hated. But beautiful wood. You can see that we have vents down the side, vents on the top, and vents down the other side as well. Fairly exposed rear, graphics card to this side, which I do have a dual slot in, but you could probably sneak in a triple slot as well if you want, but we'll talk about that in a minute. You can see the I/O here, and there are some more vents on the bottom, because you can, if you want, put some fans. Now you can put the fans on the inside, but again, we'll have to talk about that. It's going to depend on the configuration that you end up putting in, but just for the sake of argument, in case you did want to know, could I fit one underneath? If you were to put a 15mm fan on this side, it would fit, but it would be incredibly close to the ground. So if you were going to do it, I would suggest maybe getting a 3D printer friend, or just buying some rubber feet just to take it off of the floor that little bit so that the fan could fit. But it would have to be a 15mm, because a normal fan, which are 25mm thick, just won't fit. Now, to get access to the inside, what you have to do is pull this little leather or fake leather tab back a little bit, and it's got like a pop clip inside, and it literally lifts straight up. So you can see the little tabs back here and up here. So there and there, and literally once it's, come on Tom, there we go. That's it, nestled in, clicked in place. Now, once you've done that and removed it, the way to take the side panel clips off, if I move the camera, and I'm not going to change for you, just in here, I'm going to try and show you, but lighting is a pain. Now there is a little clip there. You can see I'm moving it with my finger. It's just that one. There you go, you've just seen it move. Now you have to put your hand inside, release it, and then that's how the side panel comes off. So I'm going to refit it, and then I will show you again, because it is a bit of an art form. There is a tab on the opposite side, so what we have to do is pop the tab in first. This is how I've been doing it anyway. Push one side, push the other side, and then this one, pull that clip. Can you see it's moving there? And that's it. So that's how I have been removing the sides. We'll do it again. Release the tab, out. Getting it out is a lot easier. This end does stick a little bit, but we will do both sides. Now you can tell where the tab is because they do have that little cutout, which makes your life a bit easier to know where you have to have it. But there we go, tab off. This does have the same coating on it as the front panel, so it is quite easily marked. I have marked the front again already, depending on where you can see it. Now, we do have to do some chat straight away about these orange clips. Now, the orange clips, you can see them at the top, you can see them at the bottom, and if we zoom in, basically what you can do is move the center panel of the case in its entirety, but quite strangely, if you do want to move it, you have to remove these plastic clips. But I'm just going to do one just to show you. What you can do is remove these, and then you can move this up and down. You have to do both at the same time, two at the top, two at the bottom, and then you can move the motherboard tray effectively backwards and forwards to allow you to change the preference of the configuration on the inside. So you can either have a CPU specific configuration or a GPU specific configuration, and that in itself is quite cool. So when you release those clips, what you're going to be doing is this tray here can move up and down. And if I show you this little schematic, this is actually from the reviewer's guide that they send. It's in the manual as well. Just show you the manual quickly because this is what I'm looking at, but obviously you can see this lovely image. Now for the CPU focus configuration, what it does tell you is the GPU width can be up to 40 millimeters. The GPU length can be up to 267 or up to 322 is possible. I've been saying 322, 325 for the longest graphics cards for the most part. But the most important thing is you can have up to 77 millimeters of CPU cooler height. But then if you wanted to switch to a graphics card focus configuration, you can move it the other way, have more space on the graphics card side, which means you'll be able to get a 4080 in the back. Technically a 4090 as well, but I'll talk to you about power supplies in a bit. And you can see that you GPU length up to 322, GPU width, now it's saying 58, so it's gone from 40 to 58, so you get another 18 millimeters of room. But the critical thing is your CPU cooler height has gone down from 70 millimeters now down to 52. So that's where you can just swing it either way, but they do have an alternative configuration as well. We can have a 120 millimeter AIO fitted, but that means that the radiator goes on the other side, which means you need a smaller graphics card in there. And if you remember this section, I will show you the back of the power supply and everything in a sec. So the 120 layout, just to show you the other side. I am going to show you all the specifics of everything inside the case, but I did want to show you this because if we take the graphics card out, and we go extra careful, have my tape measure here so we can measure, and this one is let's say 315 millimeters. You can squeeze a little bit more in though, but you just have to go super careful with it. It's only, well, it's a 2.5 slot and it went straight in the standard layout, just so that you are aware. But if you want to use that AIO CPU water cooler layout, you can see there are some fan mounts there which are directly against the power supply, because the power supply is mounted here. I have a big power supply in here at the moment, and again I will talk to you about this in a minute when we get round there. But you can use this as a AIO mount, but what it does have is some little, you can see that power supply standoffs or PSU spacers, and basically go on the other side of this, and it means that you can put a 10mm gap so that you can get a little bit more airflow onto the back of your power supply. So effectively it just moves the power supply 10mm closer to the outside. It means you can have your AIO there, or because of the fact NVIDIA's have fans there, you would need to do that if you put a 4080, 4070 Ti, etc. in there. I would personally say, if it was me, I would fit those spacers all the time. I actually am unsure why they didn't just have the power supply nigh on touching the outside right from the get-go, just to allow more airflow on this side, whether you were using it or not. Because one of the things they do say is you can put a fan in the bottom as well. Now I can't because of the, well, I could with the power supply in there, but not with the cables in. But you can put a fan in the bottom blowing straight up at your power supply, but sorry, at your graphics card. Technically it is a difficult one though, because it does get super complicated with layout and stuff. Now I'm just going to put the graphics card back in, because one of my gripes are with the graphics card itself. I'm just going to fit it. Right, so one of my few gripes with the case itself is this graphics card mount here. Now you can see that you should normally put thumb screws and stuff in it, but there is no way for me to get a screwdriver cleanly in anywhere. Now I can use that section, but I don't get a straight line in to be able to put the thumb screws in. And it's just one of the few things that I can see that these threads, when you put the thumb screws in, I can just see them getting ruined because people don't have direct access to be able to get a clean line in, and things are going to get cross-threaded. So that is one of my few gripes with the design of this case. It does come with a pre-fitted riser cable. It comes in its PCI Express 4. As you can see, 315mm graphics card, came out easily. Riser card in the bottom. It is actually really nicely done and stuck away. Obviously this part of the case, this whole section here, can go backwards and forwards depending on the preference of where you want the space. I do think, like I have said though, I do think that they should have just made a nice spacer rather than, they look like motherboard spacers. I think they could have just had a plastic spacer in the back just to have made life a little easier. Now, round on the business side, you can see I have a big power supply in there. As far as SFX is concerned, that's a big power supply because that is an SFXL. It's one of the new Corsair power supplies. It's 1000 watt. You can get those power supplies now up to 1200 watts, meaning you could comfortably power a 4090. But you'll notice I don't have any cables in the bottom. Now, I think personally that even with this, I don't think you're going to get decent bends on the cables underneath. I think it's going to turn into a bit of a nightmare. This is one of the times where I think that you could have had another 5mm or 10mm of room up here, because you could easily get a decent power supply cable on this with a tighter radius. If you had brought it up more, it would have meant you could have more cable clearance on the bottom. I think with today's market, I probably would have lent towards designing around an SFXL power supply. Now, this is a Lanley power supply that I've just got here to hand. This is just a normal SFX size, and what you can see is there is much more room underneath for your cables. I'm still going to say that I wouldn't necessarily want a fan in the bottom if I only had that much room for cables. But, you know, that's just me. You would have to get super careful with folding your cables up and around and to keep the airflow tidy, because obviously the sides are open. You're going to want air to be able to get in and move around cleanly. I will also say that it is just an ITX layout. You can obviously get slightly bigger ones. I think they call them DTX, where they're a little bit bigger. I've actually got one here from the other day where we were doing the other case, so just a little bit longer. This is not going to fit. It has to be the normal ITX, which is 170mm square. So power supply, layout, cooler. Obviously, like I've said, you can have your AIO in there if you want. Lots of configuration options. SFXL, probably a little bit too big for this case, but this normal size one is 850 watts. I wouldn't think twice about putting a 4080 on that 850. So I don't think you are going to run into any monstrous problems with a smaller power supply. And at the end of the day, this is a very, very small case as well. So the fact that you can have all of this on one side and then a very meaty graphics card on the other side, I actually think that is quite a lot of positives in such a small little box. Right then, I'll duck down because I've obviously put the camera in a bad spot. And rather than being clever about it and then moving it and editing it, we'll just do it this way. One of the things I did need to say is you can, in the fan mount in the bottom, put a 2.5-inch solid state drive in the bottom, and you can also put a 2.5-inch solid state drive on the back of the front panel over here. So you've got two slots for those, no slots for 3.5-inch hard drives. And then obviously if you want to run NVMEs, it's just going to depend on your motherboard itself. A lot of ITX boards have NVMEs on the back. So if you've got your graphics card and this in the way, could get a pain quite quickly. But the other side of it is, in reality, if you have got one in the back, then this might be a lot easier than with some cases you have to take the whole motherboard out. I absolutely love the fact that this is tweakable on the inside, and straight away just going to say OC3D Innovation Award, because they've given you quite a lot of clean options in that if you don't want a big graphics card and you don't want one, then you can focus on an AIO cooler. If you don't want an AIO cooler, then you can have your graphics card and just move everything over so that you can get like an L downdraft cooler from like Noctua or Be Quiet in there for air cooling. My only negatives in reality are the screws for the graphics card are just not really accessible. They're a bit of a pain. The coating on the outside marks really easily, and there was something else other than the price. I would like to have them to have focused a little bit more on the SFXL power supplies, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's going to be as many people out there wanting to put a 4090 in this as it will be for any of the others. And like I said, if you can get an 850 watt power supply in that size, then I don't really see it being a problem, because the SFXL is literally just going to be for those of you out there that need more than 1,000 watts for the headroom to get your 4090 to basically ignite. And by ignite, I don't mean flames, I just mean to get it to start. But love it. If they did a white one, then I'd probably have one because I can literally see this in it, and this is an older bloodhound which I just keep to hand to use as like a prop in the videos, but it all kind of fits in there very nicely. And I think if I was to measure out and get some custom cable mod cables going on with this, I think you can make a beautifully clean rig. I've remembered what the other little gripe was. That is, it comes with no dust filters at all. They're aluminium sides as well, which basically means it's going to be a no-go for magnets. You can get dust filter mesh that you could mod on yourself, but the fact they are aluminium means you're not going to be able to buy the magnetic ones or use little magnets, because you can put the mesh down and then put the little magnets over the top to hold it in place, and you're not going to be able to do it with this. So if you did want to go on a dust filter sesh, then you're going to have to get creative. And at the moment, the only thing that I can really think of is double-sided tape. The 3M clear stuff is a pain to work with, but I've got a tendency to use number plate attachment tape that you can get from a motor factors. It's got a green back on it and it's black. But again, the only problem with that is once it's on there, it's going to be kind of difficult to clean. So you're going to be using the Hoover attachment with the bristles. Lots of brain farting tips in this video, but cracking case, slightly more expensive than I may have liked, but it does give you a lot of user configurable options at home without having to buy anything extra. So that's a bit of a cracker. And riser cables aren't the cheapest thing in the world. I haven't looked at prices recently, but I know I bought one about a year ago and it was still 60 or 70 pounds. So that being in there, helping keep things nice and tidy, is an expensive addition. So maybe I'm being a little bit overzealous with the price. If anybody does put little rubber feet on the bottom so that they can raise it up and mount the fans on the wrong side, then don't forget, if you do that, then you can put a dust filter on the bottom of that fan as well. I think if you were to raise it up just a little bit, just off your desk so it could breathe a little bit easier, you could get a couple of 120s on the bottom quite easily, and then it will help push the old airflow through that little bit more. You could probably get black rubber ones, and you might not even notice that they were there. Anyway, I won't dither and waffle anymore. I apologise for the state of my fingernails. I was busy at my workshop last night, and despite scrubbing, I've not been able to get everything off today because we were using Tiger Seal last night, and it's just not nice once it gets on your skin. But congratulations, Fractal. OC3D Innovation Award. I'm going to be quiet. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. Thank you very much.